Under Section 34B of the 1942 Broadcasting Act, the ABC must provide fair and equal airtime to both sides of the political spectrum. Therefore, in accordance with a High Court directive, triplej is compelled to broadcast a show presented by conservative youth. So, would you please welcome Stirling Addison, Sydney Grammar GPS debating champion, and Tom Tomlinson, mining industry Bachelor of the Year 2003, as they finally bring an unbiased political voice to the ABC and attempt to restore the balance.
Yes, good evening and welcome to the third week of Restoring the Balance, our ongoing mission to unspin the left spin here at the ABC. Myself hosting Stirling Addison and my co-host, as always, Mr. Tom Tomlinson. Good evening, Tom.
Yes, it's good to have the young nationals have a voice on the ABC, Stirling. And on the Twitter last week, you can contact us on Facebook or Twitter. Yes. We were described as ranting lunatics by a Greens voter.
Badge of honour.
It is.
A badge of honour. You're always judged by your critics. Well, if that is the shibboleth they intend to hurl our way, we adopt it with pride. Before we continue on any further, Tom, I must welcome to the broadcast this evening Mr. Graham Bradley, President of the Business Council of Australia, Mr. John Roscombe, the Executive Director of the Institute of Public Affairs, and Scotty Rees from the University of Scotland, the Administrator of the Ayn Rand Appreciation Society. There is much to discuss on the show tonight, as you know, Tom. We speak with veteran political journalist Paul Barry.
Yep, I'm going to bring up the Alan Bond incident with Barry. Yes. Wasn't happy about that at the time. Remember, yes. he trod on Barry's card.
Yes.
Wasn't happy, going to bring that up with him.
Okay, well, we will also discuss how the Australian Labor Party have turned the Parliament into a whorehouse of representatives. Yes, you know of whom I speak.
Well, I do. We've got a show fuller than Craig Thompson's credit card, you could say, Stirling, tonight.
Yes. If he indeed is responsible for putting whatever he put on it.
Yes, of course.
He's denying it. And of course, there will be more proud, paid up, and now non-publicly funded advertising here on the ABC. This is Restoring the Balance on triplej.
Restoring the Balance with Stirling and Thomas.
Wresting the ABC from the clutches of communists and Catholics.
And we'll be talking to Paul Barry, veteran ABC journalist, about who is really running the country in a few minutes' time.
Well, somebody who should be running from the country is Craig Thompson, alleged user of bordellos,
hookers,
according to accusations, while engaged in union activity, got some industrial action of his own by paying for prostitutes on a union credit card. He has denied it, and his denials don't quite hold water.
I have to be honest, Stirling, it came as a huge shock to me, because I always presumed the union sold drugs to pay for prostitutes. So the fact that they're actually putting it on the credit cards, I think we're all a little bit flummoxed by that.
Well, he's certainly under the hammer at the moment, and he faces
doing his own hammering.
Yes,
from what I hear.
Indeed, he faces no greater censure than that of the Young Liberals of Woollahra, who, in an outstanding majority, condemned his actions and found his denials not plausible. Of course, the most worrying aspect of this is explaining this tawdry episode to the innocents. And I speak, of course, of my fiancée Penny, who was out the other night with her good friend and personal trainer Alonzo, and they came back and were laughing about having been dogging, and how everyone could see his staffy. Well, I assume it was a staffy. Well, of course you would if you go out walking it. I know what dogging is. It's to walk your dog. And he said he was very proud of his staffy and how everyone could see. I think he has a New Zealand accent.
Is that what you thought it was?
Yes,
okay,
exactly.
All right.
So I found myself in a position of having to explain what a brothel was
to Penny.
Yes.
Oh well, look, Stirling. It sounds like she might have some idea. But look, I'm very disappointed at the ALP, and I say this to Gillard. You want a carbon tax? Why don't you start taxing Craig Thompson's emissions?
Yes.
Yes,
well said.
Why don't you start doing that?
Yes.
At least Ruddy stuck to strip clubs.
Yes.
Thompson's really gone the full gamut here. And he's not a minister yet, is he?
No.
If he was, we know where he'd be holding his bloody community cabinet meetings, don't we?
Yes.
Don't we?
Yes.
And
Well, he was seen leaving a brothel. The name of the brothel? ALP headquarters.
I mean, Stirling, it's getting so bad that the press gallery in Canberra is basically going to be replaced by writers for Underbelly.
Yes.
That's how bad it is with the ALP at the moment. I am shocked and sickened by this. Sickened.
It's a disgrace and shame, and I call upon that member to resign. And I do so on behalf of all Triple J listeners. The level of commentary on this, Tom, has been desultory at best.
What does that mean? Not good.
Not good.
I presume, yep.
I heard some uninformed commentator on this very network saying that payments by the Labor Party to the union to cover for legal fees involved in defending accusations that he attended the brothel should attract a minge benefits tax. No such thing exists. This is a level of commentary in this country. I have looked at the tax code. There's no such thing. Is it beyond people to actually look?
It's fringe, Stirling.
Fringe.
I think you've been hanging out with Alonzo a little bit too much there, buddy. Fringe.
The standard of public discourse, it's what we're about. It's about raising the bar here at Restoring the Balance.
Restoring the Balance Re-Education Tutorial number 88, the AFIs.
The AFIs, or the Australian Film Industry Awards, honour excellence in Australian motion pictures and television. To win an AFI, you must produce a taxpayer-funded, radically left-wing movie at a massive loss, which is watched by only a handful of extremists at a community radio station. Heterosexuals who attempt to attend the AFIs are usually ostracised and subjected to vile, abusive taunts. Needless to say, all of the TV awards are picked up by the ABC.
Restoring the Balance.
How have you supported the American Alliance today?
The music we just heard, Peter, Bjorn and John. Let's call it off, which is what we should do for the Gillard Green government. We should call that off.
It's gone off, mate. Look, I want to talk about something, Stirling's very dear to me at the moment. Shilby Apples used to be a proud Aussie saying, Stirling.
Yes.
But not anymore. I want to talk about a threat to the Australian economy that I think is bigger than that being posed by European debt or the US economy.
Well, the carbon tax.
That's right. That's the threat of being invaded by New Zealand's apple industry.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, you know, Stirling, that I love a pink lady.
Yes.
And you know how I like my pink ladies? Disease-free.
Yes.
And you know how I know they're disease-free? Because they're from the great state of Western Australia.
Yes.
That's where pink ladies come from, buddy. Great apple. New Zealand apples, on the other hand, it's well known, are riddled with disease.
Yes.
Okay? Not just fire blight, but other diseases. All right? Now, kiwi apples, if you don't know, they've been banned from Australia since 1919 when the diseases were first detected. Long time. No one knows how they began, but the rumours about kiwi farmers doing unnatural things in orchards. That's all I'll say.
Yes.
That's all I'll say.
Yes, makes sense.
Look, I'll tell you how bad it is, all right? Not many people know this, but in New Zealand, an apple a day will keep the bloody doctor away because he's worried about getting banged up in a VD clinic.
Yes.
That's how infectious they are.
The science is in.
The forbidden fruit that Adam, we ate in the Garden of Eden,
Yes.
that got us chucked out of paradise, original sin, I'm betting that was an apple from New Zealand.
Yes.
That's
yes.
how foul they are.
Paradise
okay?
is this country under Howard.
You know that movie, one of my favourite movies, Stirling, American Pie? You know, the guy pokes the hole in the pastry?
I haven't seen it.
You did that in New Zealand with a New Zealand apple pie, you'd be bloody dead in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I tell you.
Whatever.
Okay, that's how bad it is. Now, the World Trade Organisation, whoever they are, they're a mob you like, Stirling.
Yes, free trade.
They say open it up, free
Yes,
trade, bring
yes,
down
well
the bloody
said.
barriers.
Well
I
said.
say, eat a kiwi apple turnover first, guys, then make a decision. Now, I don't want to get too defamatory here, okay, Stirling, but there have been rumours about the New Zealand apple program, defectors from North Korea, Iran, been flooding there, genetically modifying royal galas, Braeburn apples, all sorts of stuff. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a bloody Trojan virus in a New Zealand apple that's going to come and wipe out our industry completely.
Yes.
You know your history, Stirling, okay? This is what I propose. You tell me if I'm going too far. We get a fleet of Navy destroyers, okay? You remember the Cuban Missile bloody crisis.
Yes, 1962, yes.
Get them in the Tasman Strait, okay? Blockade the buggers. New Zealand cargo ships with their infectious apples, they so much cross 1 inch into Australian territorial waters, we basically blow them into apple strudel land.
Yes.
Too far?
Well, I would point out as a young national, I can't remember the last time a Minister of Foreign Affairs was from the National Party, and I think you've given us the most eloquent testimony as to why that is.
I don't know, Stirling. I think Barnaby Joyce would make a great foreign minister.
Yes.
I think you're going a bit far there, mate. But look, ad time.
Yes, well, speaking of the free market, it will always prevail. It has prevailed on this particular show. We are a revenue-neutral, carbon-positive show. We play ads on this show so that you, the Triple J listener, do not have to pay for it. Not that you would, most of you being on government benefits of some sort. Nonetheless, this show does not burden the hard-working taxpayers and fund managers of this country from whom all wealth evolves. Here are tonight's ads.
Regional Australia is well known for its tarts, but until you've wrapped your lips around a tart from Tamworth, you haven't lived. Tamworth tarts have been tarting up northeastern New South Wales for over 25 years and recently beat Pilbara pikelets and Finlay flans for the coveted Gunnedah Gourmet Gong. Become a member of Tamworth Tarts today and you'll receive at no extra cost our complete Quandong range, because no one packs Quandong into a tart quite like the crew at Tamworth. Tamworth Tarts, as seen in a recently unaired segment of MasterChef.
If you're looking to boost your crop yields, then look no further than Zeitman genetically modified fertilisers. The Zeitman family have been making fertilisers in third world non-extradition-based territories for over 60 years. And you can't beat that good old-fashioned Zeitman recipe of phosphorus, strontium, and of course our secret ingredient, which is presently subject to several coronial inquests. Zeitman fertilisers. The only thing longer than our guarantee is our half-life.
Restoring the balance.
We stand for fairness, free trade, and the Australian anthem.
That's a song called, I think it's probably hopefully calling it a song, Believe in Magic by Jim Jones. This is Restoring the Balance with myself, young National Tom Tomlinson, and young Liberal Stirling Addison, who's about to take a look at Alan Joyce's announcement this week on Qantas.
Yes, now, Tom, you would recall, of course, the names of great Oxbridge traitors, McLean and Philby. Well, following in their footsteps is none other than Paul Barry, the Oxford-educated political journalist, who now resides in Australia. You would have seen the job he's done on Kerry Packer and his son, and Alan Bond.
Good, a great Australian Bondy.
Yes.
Great Australian.
America's
of cup,
wealth.
we wouldn't have it.
Yes.
Yes. The Bond.
Well, now he's deigned to sit down and tell us who the most powerful people in the country are. And he joins us now to be accountable. Mr. Paul Barry, good evening.
How are you, Paul?
I'm well, thank you, despite the intro.
Yes.
Now, the political, you've got the power index up, mate, which is, I guess, looking at, the most powerful people in the country in various sort of forms. And, you've got media people, obviously powerful people in each city. You've first done the political fixes where you look at the faceless people of the ALP.
Not just the ALP, the Libs and Nats as well. One of the people on our list is Bruce McIver, who's behind the Liberal National Party up in Queensland. Very powerful guy.
Now tell us about political fixers, Paul, because, they're not people, they're being referred to as faceless men. How much power do they wield in party politics?
They have a huge amount of power in party politics. You only need to look at what happened to Kevin Rudd back in June 2010. To get an illustration of what sort of power they have, or if any of your listeners are in New South Wales, to see what happened to the Labor government over the last 10 years, where they changed leaders at will when the factions decided that the current one wasn't popular enough or good enough or doing what they wanted it to do. So, huge amount of power within the party. Whether that extends beyond that, it's a matter of debate.
Now, Paul, I mentioned in the intro, of course, you are in the vein of the Oxbridge Marxists. Does that mean, therefore, you elaborate on the role of the cultural hegemony and ideology as a means of bolstering the power of capitalism in the nation-state?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. Look, I've actually just been accused by my stablemates at Crikey, which the power index is related to, as being a right-winger. So, obviously takes all sorts. Takes all points of view.
Paul, I'm a Geelong grammar boy, an Anglican at heart. I was surprised reading the power index of how many rampant Catholics are in the ALP. You've got blokes like Don Farrell, I think, in SA and other sorts.
And Peter Credlin, who of course is no bloke.
Obviously we think the ALP are desperate to get gay marriage on the agenda because the Greens kind of pull the strings at the moment, but there's actually a bit of a backlash against it.
Well, there is a lot of... the Labour Party is obviously an extremely Catholic party. There's a lot of Irish Catholics in particular in the party. And in terms of gay marriage, there's a particular section led by Don Farrell, who I guess has Irish background. He runs did run the Shop Assistants Union in South Australia. They are very, very right-wing, deeply Catholic, deeply anti-gay marriage, abortion, stem cell research, and all that sort of stuff. So they do have quite a lot of power because Farrell helped put Gillard in power, and he lobbied her the other day against gay marriage.
Yes. How much of a threat are the union thugs installed in position of power and have become unaccountable? How much of a threat are they to our precious democracy?
I think the unions certainly have an enormous amount of power in the Labour Party, because they essentially control the factions. The unions have most of the votes, they have a majority of the votes at the party conferences, which set who gets what jobs inside the party. They also have a lot of power to determine who gets pre-selected for particular positions, and they essentially run the factions. So the unions are immensely powerful. It is anti-democratic. I mean, these people, what's 1 in 10 people now belong to a union in this country, and yet the unions are running one of our major political parties. Not a good look and not a good idea, I don't think.
Well said.
Paul, just, not a lot of nationals in the top 10 of political fixes. I'm a little bit disappointed by that. I know Trussie and Joycey would be a little bit disappointed. Are you sort of intimating they're not as powerful as they once are or were?
Look, some of them are powerful. I think factional bosses exist more in the Labour Party than in the coalition. But if you look at someone like Bruce McIver, he's very much in the mould of the old Queensland national bosses like Sir Robert Sparks. He's taken hold of the National Party in Queensland, merged it with the Liberals, and has made so many enemies in the process. So many Queensland Liberals really want to get rid of him and really dislike him. And he's an immensely powerful person behind the LNP in Queensland. And they had, something like 20 seats at the last federal election. So he's a really powerful guy. But yes, in the rest of the country, it's more Labor or the sort of Liberals in the coalition who have the power, certainly.
Union thug par excellence, Bill Shorten, will tell anyone who'll listen that he will one day be Prime Minister. Do you care to elaborate as to his chances?
Look, he's obviously got some chance. He's got a great power base in Victoria. He's backed by one of the biggest and most politically active unions, which is the Australian Workers' Union, and he's got incredible energy and charm, and he's really out there trying. But he's also one of these people who's made an awful lot of enemies, and I think inside the Labour Party, inside the sort of parliamentary party, there'd be quite a lot of opposition to having Shorten. So I wouldn't say he's favourite with anyone really apart from himself.
Just to take you back, Paul, we mentioned the Alan Bond incident where, you gave him his your card and he stepped on him. I've long considered Alan Bond, a Nelson Mandela of Australia. I mean, do you regret, bringing down or helping to bring down a great tycoon like Alan Bond? I mean, back in the 80s, I thought he would have done a better job running the country than bloody Bob Hawke.
Look, the great thing about Alan Bond is you can't really bring him down. I mean, he goes to jail and he's done for fraud and he's done for all sorts of other things, and he just keeps on bouncing back and keeps on making more money and pissing off more and more of his business partners. So I don't think we really killed him. But look, I do think I had a part in bringing him down. I don't have any problem with that. I think he was not a great example for Australia, frankly.
Yes. Now, you also wrote a book on the rise of Kerry Packer. You wrote a book about Jamie. And somehow, this is what I want to know, how did you manage to survive the savaging by Eddie Maguire?
Well, actually, the most perilous book I ever wrote was on Shane Warne. And levelling any sort of attack on Shane Warne in a book is a very perilous thing to do.
Yes.
I got absolutely hammered by the sports correspondents and by people inside cricket who thought I should never have done that.
It was
after that, attacking James Packer and Kerry Packer was really quite a snack, really.
I thought it was a national disgrace, Paul, when Tim Flannery got Australian of the Year, when Warney was obviously, the front and centre pick for the country. But Paul, thank you very much for joining us. Of course, you can go to the Power Index, and next you've
got a website.
It's a website. The megaphones is your next list after you finish political fixes.
Yeah, look, I don't think you guys are quite going to make it this year, but, get louder, get more outrageous. You never know. So it's called Megaphones, our next list.
Yeah, so that's the powerindex.com.
.au.
Yes, indeed.
Thank you, Paul, for joining us.
Okay, it's a pleasure.
No worries. This is Restoring the Balance on Triple J.
Restoring the Balance re-education tutorial number 27, the trickle-down effect.
The trickle-down effect refers to the policy where top income earners are given generous tax cuts in order that they invest more into infrastructure and equity markets. Critics of this scientifically proven method for enrichment often hate freedom, and many of this policy's opponents have often just been released from the care of mental health professionals, where they have been treated for sex crimes with livestock or furniture.
Restoring the Balance.
Proudly using non-union labour.
That's Feeding Line. Basically what happens when the ABC serve up tofu, Stirling Addison, Young Liberal. Feeding Line by Boy and Bear. Shot a few bears in my time. Went to North America with a couple of buddies.
It's legal.
Went up to Canada.
Self-defense.
12 gauge shotty. Yes. Got one in your sights. Skinned it. It's up on a mate's lodge just up there in just sort of northern Canada there.
Yes.
Fun times. It is Restoring the Balance. Coming up very shortly, I've got my song, Stirling, songs that I think Triple J should be playing.
Yes,
it's coming up next.
That's been a feast of cultural entertainment over the past 2 weeks. I'm sure you will maintain the spirit of that particular segment when we hear it next. Now, Alan Joyce, the CEO of Qantas, has earned the ire of some people today and the kudos of others, including myself, because he has confirmed to me that as far as Qantas goes, safety is the number one priority. Safety of the shareholders' investment. And that is an excellent thing because Qantas, I still call the country with the most flexible labour market regulation home, should be its new mantra. Of course, I'm talking of Alan Joyce's plans to get rid of 1,000 inefficient, lazy workers.
He's giving them the arse. Yeah, 1,000 people.
Yes, and he sent this email to them. It began with the words, "Bigorra, I think you're losing your jobs. I'm writing this email slowly because I know you can't read fast." I'm quoting it exactly. That's Alan Joyce for you. Now, he's cut costs everywhere, and the market has applauded this, and we applaud it.
Oh, I've got a few issues with it, Stirling. I mean, he's got yellow fever, Joyce, because he's opening up all these Asian routes. I mean, Kuala Lumpur and Singapore and going to Japan. And, if you get the Qantas jets with your Indians and your Asians sort of in the cabin, if say, a Hussey or a Clark tries to break Booney's drinking record to London, they're not going to understand, mate. They're going to shut it down. And you know what Asians is? You argue with them. They don't want to lose face. Yes. There's Barney going on in the cabins. Yes. And there's we're going to get rid of the bloody kangaroo off the tail.
The tail, yes.
Yeah, so basically, we're taking the kangaroo and putting it in a wok. That's what we're doing.
Yes.
I don't mind sacking people to keep the company efficient, but there's standards, Stirling, don't you think?
Well, whatever grows the company, whatever gets the shareholder price, the share price up from its high, it was $6, it's now $1.50. The people who are being sacked need to remember that their unemployment is for the greater good of those who have invested in the company. And they will get their reward, not through company entitlements to fly, not through a weekly wage, but through the satisfaction that comes with knowing that your joblessness has helped boost the retirement savings of somebody.
I reckon it's time to get rid of Travolta. Okay, I mean, every time you get on a Qantas jet, you got Travolta up there telling you that. I mean, he gets his free plane and he flies around and does his musicals and he's dancing and gets in his Grease stuff and whatnot. It's time to get a cricketer. It's time to get a cricketer up front and centre and promote Qantas, Stirling.
Yes.
And I've got a good advertise. I mean, I occasionally watch the Gruen transfer and stuff like that, and I'm going to pitch it to these guys as well. Qantas, more routes than Warney.
Yes.
I can see that happening, okay? Yes. That's going to get bums on seats. Yes. Warney cracks a VB in the cabin, talks about his roots, and then you get the arrows going, all the Asians kind of, they're good to, I agree, get the Asians to cook for you.
Yes.
Okay, in the cabin, but let's not have them up front and centre on the plane, okay? You've been to Bali, mate. You know what Asian drivers are like.
I appreciate that it will be a double entendre-led recovery from the flying kangaroo. Of course, it's unions who are going to spoil the party for everyone. Unions are the dangerous radicals on these aircraft. Watch Air Force One for the dangers of that. And I can't believe that unions are still being left on planes. Despite the fact that you go through a security screening to get onto an aircraft, union members are still getting on. It's ridiculous. We will watch the share price of Qantas with interest, and we will keep you, the Triple J listener and part-time and full-time investor, properly abridged of results.
Restoring the balance.
We resent this waste of government money.
Restoring the balance on Triple J, young National Tom Tomlinson, myself, young Liberal Stirling Addison. The music we just spent 2 minutes 57 listening to, Tom.
Never get that back, mate.
It was Escapee from Architecture in Helsinki. Word of advice, maybe go to Helsinki, hire an architect, build yourself a room in which you can study the basics of music theory.
And now it's time for What's Tom Listening To This Week?
Now, this is a segment where I get to play some music I think should be on Triple J.
Yes, rather than this architecture rubbish.
Exactly. Now, this is a song I'm about to play you, Sterling. It's covered by my favourite B&S band, the Sticky Undies.
Yes.
Now, they're not playing Romp in the Swamp B&S at the Melly there, which is very disappointing. Sticky Undies do some great Kevin Bloody Wilson covers as well. They normally play this song. It's from a band out in Newcastle in the 70s, early 80s, Sterling. I don't know if you've heard of them, Dave and the Derros.
No.
You might know their single in 1980, Up Your Nose with a Rubber Hose. They released then. I don't know. I've got it on the iPod for you, mate, if you haven't heard it. Now, this is a song, I think it's one of the greatest Australian songs ever recorded. Never made it in the Hottest 100, of course, here at Triple J.
Well, it wouldn't. It's Australian, and Kingsmill hates Australian music. The cultural cringe, Kingsmill, as we call him.
Exactly. Now, listen very closely to the lyrics of this song, because it's got great lyrics. Here we go. Let's play Dave and the Derros for you.
Yes, we can wind it up there.
No,
thank you.
You know what I like about... Yeah. All right, I know you're not going to let me play it, Sterling, but hear me out, there's a lot of PC bullshit going on at the moment, okay? Yeah. I like the message of that song because it's refreshingly honest, okay?
Is the protagonist the one with the nice legs but unfortunate looks, or is one of the characters in the song, is it...
Well, look, it's just a song because, look, think of it this way, mate. When you go and see an ugly baby, okay, you used to, you have to say now, isn't he gorgeous, and do that pretending coochie gaga stuff. Back then, when Dave and the Derros was doing the song, you could walk into the hospital, have a squiz, and just say, oh, that's a shame. Yeah. And people just, it was lighthearted, everyone had a good laugh. You put the baby's pick up on the fugly wall at home, okay? Yes. You could just call a spade a spade. And I think, Dave and the Derros, it's kind of an uplifting message as well, because you're kind of saying, if I could overlook the face, I still might have a crack. The legs could get me over the line. Yes. And for a Sheila like that, who's got a face like a half-drop pasty, that's a message of hope.
Yes. Truly redemptive is the message, one of uplift.
Exactly. You're being honest on one hand. You're saying, okay, face, half-smashed crab, legs not bad. Not bad pins. So Dave and the Derros are saying, mate, still in with a chance, still might have a crack, still might pump out a few rudrats with you. Hopefully you don't get the genes from the face.
Yes, and having a look at the photo of the band here, they surely are the epitome of the platonic ideal of beauty. And are, of course, able to judge the aesthetics of any woman from the moral high ground, surely. So well said to them. And isn't it terrible that that song was not a worldwide smash hit?
Well, look, hopefully it will be. And to Dave and the Derros, wherever you're listening, mate, keep up the good work. Love to see another release from you guys.
Oh, yeah.
And maybe, look, you have some songs that you'd like me to play on what Tom's listening to. Obviously, a lot of us have to suffer through a lot of the music here on Triple J. They don't play a wide variety of music.
There's very little,
from what I know,
very
Sterling.
Little chamber orchestra music that ever gets a say-so. And I noticed Kingsmill, whose favourite two bands are U2 and
U2 and
Coldplay.
He likes Matchbox 20 as well, from what I understand.
Yes.
But look, yeah, exactly. So we'd like your suggestions. So get onto our Facebook page. It's Restoring the Balance. Just search for them on Facebook. You can also get there by our website, which is triplej.net.au/restoring_the_balance.
Which, of course, itself underscores how little the IT crowd here want you to access our page.
Exactly. And also, we're both on the tweet. It's at Stirling Addison or at Tomlinson Tom. That's THOM. At Tomlinson Tom. You can tweet us, you can get on our website, or you can get on our Facebook and suggest some music or anything you'd like us to talk about.
Restoring the Balance with Stirling and Thomas.
Constitutional Monarchists of the Month.
Restoring the Balance on Triple J with myself, Young National Tom Tomlinson, my co-host, Young Liberal Stirling Addison. It's 2 hours of conservative talk for conservative youth on the youth broadcaster. We've got a big second hour coming up, Stirlo. Very interested as I just blow the froth off a coldie for this one.
Genealogy. We have a genealogist coming in to explore not only our family trees, and he will find nothing.
Aren't they normally for women?
Family trees?
No, genealogists.
Yes. That's a gynecologist. Yes.
I thought it was odd.
Yes.
One was coming in. Okay. So family trees and
family
that kind of
trees,
stuff. All right.
Yes. Exploring not only our own, of course, we'll find no surprises in mine, nothing but blue blood, but also he will explore the family histories of the three quislings of the crossbench, the traitors who sit on the crossbenches in Parliament supporting the wrong government. We will explore their family trees to see what treachery lies in their past.
Oh, and let's get stuck into the Greens as well. They don't have family trees. It's more a family plant that you can, roll up into a joint and smoke.
Yes.
Let's face it, that's what the Greens have. And we've also got mailbag coming up, Stirling, as well. A lot of comments and questions that were raised last week. We've got stuff on, like fracking.
Yes.
We've got stuff on rum that's been released, stuff on Scots College and their involvement in that scandal in Sydney as well.
And COAG
exactly.
As well. You see, what you have in this 2 hours, Tom, is what we have not had in 4 years of the Gillard-Rudd conspiracy. It is open and accountable
discussion.
Yes.
Fair and balanced, mate.
Yes.
That's what we do on this program. We're glad to have your company. And big second hour coming up.
Restoring the Balance.
Because you're never fully dressed without a national flag.
This is Triple J, Restoring the Balance. Young Liberal, myself, Stirling Addison. My co-host is Mr. Tom Tomlinson of the National Party, the Young National Party. The most crushing thing I could ever say about a song played on this network, Tom, is that it will never become a Liberal Party election anthem. And I say that about Stonefield, or should I say Stoned Field. Yes, yet another endorsement of the drug-addled lifestyle enjoyed by Kingsmill and his cronies. That is Blackwater Rising.
What's in the mailbag?
Now, you can go to our website, triplej.net.au/restoring_the_balance. We're also on Facebook or the Twitter, at Stirling Addison, at Tomlinson, that's with a H, Tomlinson Tom, and ask us any questions.
Should point out there are 2 D's in Addison. And we will
exactly.
find out more about the Addisons, the noble Addisons, Clan Addison, when we speak to our genealogist shortly.
First one for me, Stirling. Someone has written in, Nenard has written in and said, can you tackle coal seam fracking versus mining rights? So obviously that's a little bit of we've been having a bit of a Barney off air about this, Stirling. Yes. Let me just say this first off. No one likes to come home and walk in on strangers fracking. And that's the problem confronting farmers at the moment, okay, on their properties. There's a fraction too much friction, as I said at the Young National thing, if you allow me the pun, Stirling. Yeah. Now, this is what I say to the mining companies, and they're good Australia, and I like seeing mining kept strong, all right? And I think all Triple J listeners should wake up in the morning and ask, how have they kept mining strong today? All right, now miners should stick to mining in their usual areas, and that's on the traditional lands of Aborigines.
Yes.
Okay? Because it's obvious that most of these Indigenous claims are made up anyway.
Yes.
And, our lawyers, they can tie those native claims up in courts for long enough so we can get the stuff out of the ground.
Yes.
So everyone wins except the Aborigines in that formula. That's what's been happening for years.
But the Indigenous Australians make hundreds of thousands of dollars from mining. They are the real winners. They line their pockets.
Well, that's true. And that's another issue for another time, you know. But let me say this. When mining companies intrude onto the traditional lands of agriculturalists and farmers, lands that have been in our families and forebears for generations, that's a step too far, Stirling. Yes. I'm all for keeping mining strong, and I know that a lot of mining companies are struggling at the moment to make ends meet, and it's obvious that they're being overtaxed by the Gillard government. So I say this to the LP. Release the tax burden from the mining companies, allow them, you know, to break even, for God's sake, even like that, and they can stay off the land of traditional farmers.
Yes.
That's my solution, Stirling.
That is a most eloquent defence, I should say. Will it be heeded? We can but hope. And for goodness sake, give them a break.
Now, you've got a question about COAG, is that right, mate?
Yes, it said, what meaningful reforms have been effected at COAG this year? Well, COAG, as we know, on this week, the Council of Australian Government, what basically it is premiers being summoned to Canberra by an insane Prime Minister.
Illegitimate.
Yes, lured into her locus of control, and where she acts as some emperor presiding over her ever-shrinking imperium. And this is where state premiers and territory chief ministers and the president of the Australian Local Government Association must have come to pay tribute to her. And pay they do. And they come to beg. They don't come to discuss, they come to beg. As some importunate supplicants seeking alms from one grown fat from ill-gotten gains. It is a sham of a democracy that we have in this country. It is a sham. I call upon the Gillard government to do the right thing. Fall on your swords, resign, and give us the government we nearly voted for.
I don't understand what you said, Stirling, but look, mate, I agree with you. I've got a quick one here as well. Someone's asked me to comment on a great article in the NT News. I don't know if you saw this, Stirling. It reads, half-double decaf soy latte sippers are ruining the territory. Princess Mucks wanting macchiatos or cappuccinos have killed off the program that offered free instant coffee to drivers. Apparently, it says, coffee snobs don't want to stay alive on long drives. They want a barista's loving touch and maybe a vanilla caramel frangipelli shot too.
Well, I would point out to any coffee snob, the worst way to die is instantly.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. Can I say to that how coffee culture is killing off the real Australia, Stirling? You come here to the ABC and it's all about fair trade, cruelty-free mocha macchiato with organic Nepalese goat milk.
Yes.
Okay, you know how I have I have an Aussie coffee, Stirling. You know what that is? A warm VB with a tablespoon of bloody international roast.
Yes.
Can you get that at Gloria Jean's? No.
Yes.
Just allow me one comment. This is a great comment that from one of the loyal, erudite NT News readers who's written in.
Is it Woodward or Bernstein?
Well, he's written, Stirling, baristas, we're all bloody baristas. I can make you a cup of coffee at the sink in about 45 seconds and a cost of 6 cents. When you can skin a buffalo or wrestle a pig or do something that I can't do, then you have the right to brag. And it is a sad day in this country, Stirling, when more people can make a cappuccino than gut a pig.
Yes.
I'll leave it at that.
Yes. Well, we can blame Gillard for that too. Of course, it calls to mind the left bank, the height of Parisian intellectualism in the 60s, sipping their cafe lattes and the like. Are you saying no such direct equivalent exists in Darwin at the moment?
I don't know what you're talking about, left bank.
Intellectual ferment going on where post-structuralism is being hotly debated while buffalo are being skinned.
There's a radio there at the moment. That's what you mean. And finally, this is one for you, Stirling. It's been asked you to comment on Paul Peters, you know, the bloke who's been allegedly implicated in the collar bomb.
Yes.
SMA, this is from David, and he's asked you to comment on the SMH's leftist agenda, reporting on his private school background. He went to Scots College in Bellevue Hill, and whether his brother, who's in Long Bay, whether there's an actual GPS private school table in prison.
Well, I think there should be. If there isn't, and it is yet again proof of the SMH's agenda against fine Protestant private schools. It's rampant in the left-leaning media in this country. It is the politics of class envy writ large. I will say about a table for those privately educated in prisons, it should exist. If it doesn't, I call on one to exist, because you can imagine any of our former alma mater, inside, they would of course be there wrongly convicted, But if they were, they would set about immediately setting up a house system whereby prisoners would be organised into houses named after great Anglicans.
Yes,
and they would get together each morning at chapel and sing "Nearer My God to Thee." And there would be endeavour, there would be industriousness, there would be order.
Prefects?
Yes, prefects, indeed. And fellows would be given punishment for smoking that for a change wouldn't involve sodomy. This is what a GPS education brings to the prison system.
That's the sort of comments that you can get if you email in or get on our Facebook for mailbag next week, Restoring the Balance.
Restoring the Balance re-education tutorial number 12, Australian Music Month.
Australian Music Month is a yearly event on Triple J in which local artists' work is featured on high rotation on Triple J playlists with accompanying music clips on ABC TV. In reality, Oz Music Month shields uncompetitive local artists from genuine international competition and harkens back to the grim years of ruinous industry protection by means of tariffs. By subsidising and mollycoddling Australian musicians, Triple J denies overseas artists access to this market and thus deprives its audience of world-class, popular and struggling acts such as Andre Rieu and Rob Thomas.
Restoring the Balance.
Because you're never fully dressed without a national flag.
The Hold Steady sequestered in Memphis, Triple J's endorsement of ludicrous and inefficient technology to sequester carbon emissions. Sequestration in Memphis. Sequestered here in the bowels of the beast, the ABC, is this show, Restoring the Balance. Young National Tom Tomlinson, myself, Stirling Addison. Very shortly, the conservative and or Christian What's On. If you have a conservative or Christian type gathering or event, please get in contact with us here and we will read it out on the air.
Now, Stirling, since we've started this show up, this third week of Restoring the Balance, I've had a bit of female interest on the tweet and Facebook and stuff like that. Just girls saying, you know, you're a good bloke, Tom, what's your situation?
Yes.
And I've sort of been, to be honest, I've been keeping my options open a little bit just to see sort of, you know, what sort of quality sort of presents itself. But look, I should announce now, and I do want to do this, that I am in a relationship with Tammy.
Tammy, yes.
She's from the Western District, sheep girl.
Yes.
Western Districts of Victoria.
Tammy Fraser.
Well,
the Liberal Party quisling Malcolm Fraser.
That's who she was named after, mate. Tammy Fraser.
Well, I would end the association. I would have nothing to do. I would not stain myself with that family.
Well, look, she's a good girl, Tammy, and look, we've been going out for about 2 years now. I met her on a Kentucky tour of the Middle East in about 2009. She sort of hooked up with the bus driver first, sort of was pashing him for a while. We sort of hooked up a little bit in Oman, but by the time we got to Yemen, it was full on. I mean, it was pretty quick as well.
As is so often the case.
No one actually, and I'd like to do this next week, has looked, at the connection between the Arab Spring and Kentucky tours in that area. Because I think we sort of opened up...
The political catalyst, do you think, came from drunk Australians?
Yeah, maybe. I think. And Tammy and I, you know, when you have that connection, I don't know if you had this with Penny, Stirling.
Well, it is a chaste courtship that we are enduring and we are engaged, but it's an oft-delayed wedding. But nonetheless, continue, Tom.
We had this connection. I mean, we were both in Syria. We were both bitching about the lack of hungry jacks in that country.
Yes.
And we were both sort of annoyed when we both got told off for kicking a footy around Mecca at the sort of Prophet Muhammad tomb there as well. So we both sort of had the same attitude to everything, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and the same grasp of geography, it seems.
And I've always been kind of a little bit touchy on women because I've always said this. My dad taught me this, Bob Tomlinson.
Yes.
He always said to me, mate, women, you know, they're good, but you can't trust them in a crisis. And I've always sort of thought that, but Tammy's a little bit different. I mean, if she's making a casserole and you need your shirt ironed, she's the sort of chick who can do both, and she doesn't complain about it. She doesn't sort of get into high dramas.
Yes.
And that's what I like about her. And she's kind of, you know, she sort of supports me in what I do as well. She's a member of the CWA. She knows a way round a caramel slice. She makes herself scarce when the boys come over, and she can fill a cutlery drawer like no woman I've ever met.
Yes.
You know, so she sort of ticks all the boxes. So it's getting a little bit serious. So I say to the girls on the tweet and the Facebook stuff, you know, I'm kind of semi-serious. at the moment.
Semi-serious. So
Semi-serious.
Are you committing to Tammy, or is it an open relationship? She just doesn't know it.
Kind of. I mean, you're sort of picking up where I'm coming from, and
Yes.
I'm a little bit worried about her drinking. As well, I've sort of asked her to cut back a bit, because when the boys and I come back from a pub crawl and she's sort of cracking a few tinnies as well, it's not a good look.
Yes.
So, if she can get a sort of house in order in that
Yes.
sort of way, then yeah, I think we'll probably be semi-serious.
Yes,
or almost serious.
I can imagine your concern as you're passed out in a pool of your own vomit if she's caught holding a can of rooster juice or whatever it is you're calling it.
Yeah,
yes,
exactly.
Yes.
Yeah,
So as you're wiping vomiters from your chin.
Well, she's done that, yeah.
Appearances are everything, of course, I do understand. Yes, well, march her down the aisle.
Yes.
It is, of course, a great excuse to get very drunk. I don't know why you haven't done it.
Sterling, now it's time for us to play another ad break. As well, as you said earlier, we do fund this show through our own advertisements. I know you've sourced your own advertisers and I've sourced mine. So it's time for another Restoring the Balance ad break.
Coming soon to triplej Publishing, the book no Restoring the Balance listener can do without. The top 10 commonest mistakes in setting up a reading circle in your part of the eastern suburbs. This easy-to-read tome gives you the do's and don'ts to establishing a genteel social network amongst fellow literary aficionados, and gives you all the pointers you need to give your reading circle that necessary veneer of intellectual snobbery, guaranteed to freeze out book-loving pretenders from poorer postcodes. Your reading circle guide also gives you step-by-step instructions on how to roll your eyes whenever the name Dan Brown is mentioned, lists 13 Evelyn Waugh in-jokes your plumber won't get, and comes with a life-sized flammable effigy of Jonathan Franzen, who must be punished for being popular. Available on mail order, or can be ostentatiously purchased at your next visit to an inner-city writers' festival.
At long last, you can own your very own digital versatile disc or DVD featuring Stirling Addison's discreet charity work with Australia's disadvantaged. Answering his Protestant God's call for good works amongst the poor, you can watch as Stirling travels from his home in Willara to the remote Aboriginal community of Redfern. You'll thrill to see Stirling helping the destitute the only way he knows how, by addressing their concerns about the ATO's lax administration of the private bindings ruling system and the use of IT precedents. Never before have the homeless questions about family trust and tax minimisation been so thoroughly addressed. But it has now. And remember, proceeds of the sale of this DVD will go towards funding Stirling Addison's other good works, namely the push to unseat Malcolm Turnbull from the seat of Wentworth and end the diversity of opinion in the Federal Liberal Party. Stirling Addison Charity DVD. Give to those who have.
Restoring the Balance with Sterling and Thomas.
Constitutional Monarchists of the Month.
That's a song called I Feel Better by Gotcha. I like Gotcha calls. I don't know, they should do them on Triple J. And Battle of the Sexes. There's some ideas for you if you're listening, Tom and Alex, in the morning.
It might make money.
It might get them popular. Yeah. Beat the bomb as well. It's,
Secret sound.
Exactly. There's some good ideas, mates. They're free. This is Triple J, Restoring the Balance. Myself, Young National, Tom Tomlinson, my co-host, Young Liberal, Stirling Addison. 2 hours of conservative comment and analysis on the youth broadcaster. We're an island in a sea of, the raging seas of leftist, tightist. Help me here, Sterling. I don't know. You're good with this sort of stuff. Orthodoxy.
Yes.
And we've got a very special guest.
Yes. Now, to those of us whose genetic inheritance is almost preordained by God, we can only look askance and with some amusement at the lower middle class's affection for researching their family history. Let me explain to the average Triple J listener, looking into their family tree, in other words, actually knowing who your father is. That is something unusual to most people currently engaged in listening to this broadcast. Somebody who does it for a living, though, is Brad Argent from Ancestry.com. And we have him in here this evening, Tom, to get some insight as to what treachery lies in the family trees of the Quislings of the crossbenchers. Those three independents who rather stupidly threw in their lot with the Gillard Green axis of evil. Good evening, Brad Argent. Thank you for joining us.
Good evening, gentlemen.
How are you, Brad? Now, Ancestry.com, you've done a little bit of research into some of the independents for us. Are they massively inbred? Are we talking livestock here? What's going on?
Well, guys, look, we had a bit of a shake of their tree just to see if any of the strange fruit would come tumbling out. And indeed, it
Rotten
has.
fruit. Rotten. Yes.
Yes.
Well, look, starting off with Mr. Oakeshott. As we know, he does like to ramble on occasionally, and it's not surprising. Many of his ancestors had roles that were very much in the public eye, so I think that a desire of his to acquire and maintain attention is well and truly in the genes. If you look at one of his ancestors, George John Oakeshott, he was an architect. And he did a lot of work around Sydney University, but he also designed one of the Australian exhibitions at one of the World Fairs. So very prominent in the public works department.
Yes. Could he not have designed a better descendant?
Well, look, when you introduced this, you talked about genetics, and there's a huge difference between genetics and family history. And it's quite possible for all of us that somewhere back in the distant past, perhaps for those of the lower ranks more so than others, that there might have been a little bit of intermingling going on.
Well,
so those cultural things that one finds in one's tree might not necessarily be the same as the genetic ones.
Yes.
Now, what about Windsor? I mean, here's a guy, Brad, who stabbed the Nationals in the back. A guy who went across to the other side. I mean, what? I mean, his family tree. What are we looking at there?
Well, when I started having a look at Tony Windsor's tree, it was all pretty much prim and proper, but there was something a little iffy down one of the branches of the tree. So I had a look, and here we've got this guy, Charles Dunn, convict. Now, he gets nicked for stealing washing off a clothesline, but it was still wet and had it wrapped around him. Anyway, he came out here, he did his time and got his certificate of freedom, but he was, of all things, a ginger beer brewer in the Rocks in Sydney. Now, it might sound like a euphemism, and I actually think it was. I think he was running a little bit of a sly shop on the side.
Yes.
So he's an alcoholic panty sniffer. Is that what you're implying there?
Look, you can read into it, guys, what you like. But he ended up dying in jail.
Yes.
And he got nicked again for stealing horses. Now, what I find fascinating about that is later on in life, his daughter decided to expunge that from history and referred to him as a veterinarian.
Yes.
So they have a tendency to want to rewrite the history that doesn't really suit them.
Yes,
well,
indeed.
look, many of us would like to see Tony Windsor in jail, I think, Brad.
Or expunged from Parliament.
Now, what about Bob Catter as well? I mean, we had Bob on the show last week, and he's got some okay policies, but another guy who shoved the kitchen knife into the guts of the National Party. You see any evidence of that in his past?
Well, Bob's got a really interesting family tree. He's Lebanese, of Lebanese extraction, the Catters.
Christian Lebanese, I hope.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
And he married Bob's great-grandfather married his great-grandmother up in Queensland. She was a Warby. Now, what was really interesting about that is he was 25 and she was 15. Nothing wrong with that. Had the parents' consent.
Not in rural Australia.
Yep, and it's Queensland too, so
Yes.
everything was above board. Prior to marrying
How had she been left on the shelf that long?
Well,
yes.
Maybe that's why they had to marry her off. She was getting a bit old.
Yes.
But look, he was just a driver, and then marries this Warby woman. All of a sudden, he becomes a doyen of society, draper to the elite of the elite, man about town, very, very well respected. Turns everything around just through the right kind of marriage connections.
Yes.
And, of course, the Catters go on from there to be... I think Bob's father was a member of Parliament
Yes,
as well.
he was. Yes.
Yeah.
But there is some... Did you uncover in the family history of the Catters, Brad Argent from Ancestry.com, an association with the ALP? Because it does exist in the Catter family tree.
Look, there is some interesting associations in Bob's tree. When I was doing the research, and this is an exclusive, something I hadn't uncovered before, there was a catter. Now, I'm not suggesting that there's a connection.
I'll interrupt you there, Brad. Are we in any hope of bringing down the government with this exclusive you're about to give us?
Look, I'll let you guys be the judge of that. You know politics much better than I do. But there was a catter mentioned in an attempted assassination plot of the Turkish ambassador in Brisbane at the beginning of the 1900s. Now, I'm not suggesting that there's a definite connection. I will let individuals draw their conclusions for themselves.
Can I say something on Tom's behalf? Was it payback for Gallipoli, which hadn't yet happened?
Well, look, who knows? It could be. Those catters have got a lot of foresight. You never know.
Yes.
Well, speaking of that, Brad, now, I know we're going to take a quick break, 30-second break here, but you've actually researched our own family trees. Is that right?
I have indeed, gentlemen, and brace yourselves.
Okay, that's coming up next. Restoring the Balance on Triple J.
Restoring the Balance Free Education Tutorial number 44. Get Up.
Get Up is a left-leaning Australian community activist group formed in 2005. Its campaigns are usually community-based and involve social media. Get Up generates 90% of worldwide spam and is, in particular, responsible for those thousands of unwanted emails you receive on penile enlargement.
Restoring the Balance Free Education tutorials, we run those throughout the broadcast. Fair and balanced, as always, as is our guest Brad Argent from Ancestry.com. Now, Brad, we've just been talking about the treacherous independents, their family trees, but you've dug into the Addison and Tomlinson family trees. What have you discovered?
Well, Thomas, interesting. Now, as you probably know, your ancestors are from Norway. They go back to a little village called Holmstrand in Norway, and now they came out to Australia around the 1890s, and got quite a large land grant up in Queensland. But what was really interesting about that is when I had a little bit of a look back in Norway. Now the records are a little hard to come by.
Yeah,
I did find that the great grandmother of yours who came out, Karin Lar's daughter. Now, it's not, that's just a sort of a patronymic naming system because her father was named Lars. Her sister married a guy called Martin Matheson. Now, that name Matheson should ring a bell.
Doesn't actually.
It doesn't?
No.
He's otherwise known as Mr. Julia Gillard.
What? The same.
There is
Matheson, the hairdresser.
Unperdurable shame. Well, I think there is a familial connection between you and Australia's first bloke. Now, it does go back a way, so keep that in mind.
Although
a little bit
they're not married, so is there some glimmer of hope there? As long as they remain unmarried,
well, as long as
there will be no direct connection.
Well, yeah. Look, there's no direct connection with Julia. Other than perhaps you could frame it as, your cousins are sleeping with the enemy.
Well, look, I have to say, Brad, I've never been into redheads, and my haircut's shocking. So, look, I don't think I'm related to that bloke, but we'll have that expunged. What's that word? Expunged?
Expunged
from the family tree.
Go, Brad.
Yeah, look, Tom, it's not all bad news. Because I actually have found a little bit of a connection to some blue blood.
Not surprising, mate.
Well, when your ancestors came here, they did a wonderful job of growing and a reasonable allotment into a massive property up in Queensland. Now, the name Middleton should mean something to pretty much everybody, unless you've been hiding under a rock for the last 12 months.
I think backside when I think Middleton.
Yeah, yes, two particular things spring to mind for me, but. When you look at the Middletons, there is a connection. Now, your great-grandmother was a Middleton, and she is connected to Kate. So you actually have a direct connection to the Duchess of Cambridge.
Wow.
Now, it goes back a little bit, but it's definitely there, it's as solid as it's in the records. Now, that also means, by a strange coincidence, that you have a connection to Duke of Cambridge as well, because, believe it or not, Kate and William are actually related, which is really not that surprising.
It's very royal.
It's very royal.
Yes. It's very royal.
Well, I tell you, Brad, I'd like to have a very direct connection when it comes to Kate Middleton.
Yes.
But what have you found out about the Addison family tree?
With two Ds. No, nothing to be ashamed about in my family background, as I've been assured many times by my father. So what did you uncover?
Well, look, I did. And did you actually have a little bit of a connection to the blue blood, which was a little bit surprising because, now, as you know, I'm sure, Stirling, you know that your family goes back in Australia a long, long way, right back to the very early days. And in fact, your, I think it's 5 times great-grandfather, a guy by the name of George William Addison, he came out in 1832 on one of the convict ships. Interestingly, a female convict ship, and he was an assistant to the surgeon. Now, when I traced his family back, they initially appeared to be from the cotton industry, big in the cotton industry, owned a large number of mills.
Yes.
But
non-union.
Look, absolutely. And I looked back, and here was this connection into, to Scottish blue blood.
Clan Addison, yes, indeed.
But where I think it actually comes from is the Stuarts, right?
Mighty Scottish name.
Your 6 times great-grandmother was Jane Paget Stuart. Now, she was the youngest daughter of the 8th Earl of Galway, which is George Stuart.
Which justifies my choice of the family kilt at my wedding.
Well, absolutely.
When it happens.
And look, it's really one of those classic things that you find. Here is the youngest daughter of some blue blood. There's not a lot left for her. The family fortunes of the royals are struggling at the time. The rich industrialists were there. They had all the money and they wanted the prestige. So the family got married and, of course, they went on to prosper. Now, what's interesting about George is, I think he was, sowing his youthful seed with those below stairs, and that caused something of an indiscretion, which is probably what got him on the boat out here. But what was surprising about that is I followed him, and he went to Hobart, which is where the Hydra, which is the convict ship, landed.
The convict ship, a portrait of it hangs in my father's drawing room.
Oh, okay. Yes. I've seen a copy of that portrait in a book.
In full
so you
sail.
have the original.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a beautiful ship. Yes. I mean, the convict ships at sail did look lovely. Had a little bit of a look closer, and particularly on this one, as a number of the women died of cholera before it even left England. It wouldn't have been such a pretty sight. But anyway, he gets down to Hobart very quickly, makes his way to Sydney through connections with the Governor Burke at the time, and he marries this woman. Now, this woman called Mary, and it's
sounds
Mary,
Catholic there.
Mary O'Donnell.
Stage name. Stage name.
Now, my suspicions were aroused when I got a copy of the marriage record. And on the marriage record, it says governor's permission.
Yes.
Now, it turns out, brace yourself for this, she was a convict. And she was a convict.
Stirling.
She was a convict servant. Yes. And she was a servant to George. Now, I think, we can say from history, he's had a little bit of a thing for servants.
Did he put it on his credit card but blame it on somebody else? I hope there's plausible deniability.
What was interesting, Stirling, and I think this is very, very telling. Mary was Roman Catholic.
What?
Yes.
Stirling's gone into shock here. He's gone into shock, Brad.
Look, it's you have to remember.
She'll be expunged. But being female, the Catholic strain is not matrilineal. The Anglican strain, which takes precedent, is patrilineal. Therefore, we can easily expunge her and deny her existence.
Well, look, I don't even think that's necessary, because she was married in St. James Anglican Church,
Excellent.
which is that beautiful, and one of the very earliest and probably oldest surviving Anglican church in Australia.
Did she renounce her Catholicism and the Vicar of Rome?
I don't think she did, and that would have been very, very difficult for her to do that, because in order for that to happen, she would have had to go back to Ireland, something that just was not possible for her to do, to get her name removed from the church records. So, for all intents and purposes, she became Anglican.
Excellent. And we'll leave it there. No more shocks, please, Brad. Brad Argent from Ancestry.com.
Thank you, Brad, for joining us.
It's a pleasure, gents.
Restoring the balance on Triple J.
Restoring the balance.
Let the free market decide.
Restoring the balance. Finally an end to the leftists' monopoly of opinion on Triple J and the ABC at large. You're with young National Tom Tomlinson, myself, young Liberal Stirling Addison. The music we heard, Love Less Love, from Sparkadia.
And now it's time for the Restoring the Balance What's On Guide.
Yes, this is what's on for conservative youth.
And Christian youth.
That's right, Christian youth. If you're in Tassie, head down to Surge Bay on September 10 or 11. It's the Jackson Daffodils annual free open weekend. So it's a rare opportunity for public to wander through the countless varieties of daffodils and also have Devonshire tea, which is supplied by the Dover Esperance Multi-Purpose Auxiliary. So, Stirling, whether you're into trumpet daffodils, maybe you're into large cup daffodils or double daffodils or triandrous daffodils, poeticus daffodils, split corona daffodils, you'll be catered for at the Daffodils annual free open weekend there in Surge Bay.
Well, make Tasmania your prolonged port of call because... I say with no false modesty, Tom, I am actually responsible for the topic being discussed at the 23rd conference of the Samuel Griffiths Society, which will also be held in Hobart. This is at the Mercure Hobart, and this is on the 27th of August. Finally, we discuss electoral law and its consequences.
Well,
9 a.m, yes, Paul Pirani, the Paul Pirani, will
The.
discuss current issues and recent cases on electoral law. He will give the Australian Electoral Commission's perspective. At 9:45,
Wow.
brace yourself for Professor James Allen's...
How'd you get him?
A lot of intermediaries and pleading were needed. He will deliver his long-awaited lecture entitled Until the High Court Otherwise Provides, Electoral Law Activism. Of course, the Honourable Michael Field is turning up, plus Scott Bennett to talk the haircut voting system. A critical analysis is offered thereof.
Any alcohol provided for that, Stirling? Can you crack a few beers during
sober reflection upon electoral law.
All right.
Yes,
Need
and
to
its
have a couple, mate.
consequences.
All right, now, if you're in Boolia in Queensland on September 24, you can go to the Goodwood Wet Season Spelling Planning Day, Sterling.
Yes.
Now, this is a hands-on map-based planning session, okay, to help you decide which paddocks are most likely to respond to a spell in the coming wet. Excellent. How long you spell them for, how often to spell for, and what to do with the cattle of those paddocks, and what your production benefits are likely to be. Yes. So there's a bit of a paddock walk around Goodwood, because often the biggest, I think, issue confronting a lot of farmers up there during the wet is when do you spell a paddock?
Yes.
I mean, it's one of the questions that if you go to a public bar up there in any farm in far north Queensland, are you spelling? Will you spell? When will you spell? What have you spelled? And why did you spell?
Can anyone in Queensland spell paddock? Or would you say leave it fallow, which is possibly more correct?
You should come along, Stirling.
Yes. In the spirit of reciprocity, I'll go if you come along to Opera Australia's Dinner on the Dock. It is held in Sydney. Of course, Opera Australia don't need to provide dates on their website. You just simply know if you're in that milieu. Now, you can, for Dinner on the Docks, dine like Russian royalty at Opera Australia's Wine and Gourmet Evening. There is their guarantee that unlike the Russian royals, you will not be shot against a wall at the end of dinner, which is most amusing. You can step behind the scenes at Opera Australia and enjoy a night of outstanding food, wine and song. The Paint Dock will transport you to old Russia with a menu of Northern European delicacies and the essential ingredients for an evening of imperial delight before Russia was plunged into a Bolshevik nightmare.
I quite like Boom Crash Opera.
I've never heard that particular opera. You'd have to
I'll lend
provide
you
me with
a
CD
couple of CDs of
yes.
that. That's the Conservative What's On guide. You can go to our website, triplej.net.au/restoring_the_balance, Facebook or tweet at Stirling Addison with 2 Ds or at Tomlinson Tom with an H, and let us know if you've got an event you'd like us to plug next week.
Restoring the balance.
We resent this waste of government money.
This is Restoring the Balance on Triple J, almost at an end. 2 hours of conservative comment and analysis from myself, young National Tom Tomlinson, and young Liberal Stirling Addison. That was Loop fiasco. Well, certainly was that, wasn't it, Stirling? A fiasco.
Yes.
I don't want to care. Well, obviously he doesn't care about music because I didn't hear a guitar in there. I virtually didn't hear a drum kit, and certainly not a gum leaf.
Well, that's certainly the siren call of any Triple J listener. I don't want to care. Let somebody else do it.
Remember, in our prayers.
Tom, it of course being a Sunday and we being a Christian nation, I urge all Triple J listeners who have been to Sunday worship at their Anglican church to spend a moment remembering in their prayers. If they, when they've finished their ablutions and they go to bed, I want them to reflect. Now, reflection for the average Triple J listener, Tom, is something they see in the water in a toilet bowl before they eject the beverages, the overpaid beverages from the night before.
Well, some young nationals did that a couple of weeks ago. So, I mean, it's not.
That's merely providing retail therapy for the economy. It's different when Triple J listeners do it.
Well, they do it on an hourly basis.
Yes, exactly. Yes. So I would ask all Triple J listeners of stout heart to remember in their shares this week the shareholders of Qantas.
In their prayers.
In their prayers.
Yeah.
That they may be unaffected by the evil strike action about to be undertaken by its ungrateful employees. They have long threatened it. We also ask our bountiful Lord in heaven that he may somehow rehabilitate the share price from $1.50 to a level, if you would like to, just remember to beseech the Lord, to a level of about $6. Okay?
Well, see, my mate Tomo said that, half of these Qantas people want to leave anyway because, so they can get gay married.
Yes.
You know what they say. They're all probably happy to leave. They're off, they'll be off having their ceremonies when Bob Brown gets his way.
Yes. Yes. Well, my concern about Qantas is, of course, that it may affect the service in first class and that it may impact upon the service. When you're in first class, you want it to be a good combination or a good balance, a happy balance between servile and deferential. And I'm worried that a worker in first class will be too worried about their own financial security and that of their family and not the quality of the red wine they're bringing you.
Okay. Well, I'm sure that's a common fear at the moment, Stirling.
Yes, indeed. Also, I ask you all to remember in your prayers the Libyan rebels and their enduring mission to oust the despotic tyrant Muammar Gaddafi. Now, we pray that these rebels may transform the country from a backward Muslim dictatorship to a modern, liberal, Christian democracy, and one that recognises that a government, its first and greatest priority, is to fund private schools.
Let's hope that, yes. Let's get Cranbrook over there in Tripoli.
Yes, indeed.
A sister school over
campus.
there.
Yes,
that'd
indeed.
be great. Or Shaw.
Yes.
Shaw.
Yes.
That'd be good to see.
Or if we were to inflict even more misery on them, some form of Melbourne Protestant private school.
Xavier. That's a school in Melbourne, I think.
Now, Tom, who would you like to remember in your prayers?
The rum-drinking population of this great country, Stirling.
Yes.
Bundy, which is a great company, of course. I've sampled many of their products over the years, are bringing out a white rum. Now, white rum, can I say, it's just the limpest of all rums. It's a tasteless mixing rum that you put in with your fizzy cranberries and your gooseberries and whatever metrosexual, slightly gay marriage type drinks are out in the market have white rum in it. It is a disgrace that this country is going to be inflicted with that pestilence. I've always said that if you want to have a citizenship in this test in this country, drink a litre of dark rum, mate, okay? Yes. I propose and I encourage a second rum rebellion in this country.
A rum rebellion,
A rum rebellion where we rise up against this scourge of some sort of pinko, lefty, awful drink of the white rum.
So you would see, in the manner of the Mideast Spring, a broad-based popular uprising based upon a clear alcoholic beverage.
Exactly,
and
Sterling.
you are asking,
I'm glad to see you're on board, mate.
You are asking our Father in heaven for some divine intercession in that particular quest. I don't think you'll get far. Read the Bible. His son was a wine man.
Thank you, Stirling, for your support. That has been Restoring the Balance on Triple J with myself, young National Tom Tomlinson, young Liberal Stirling Addison. The debate and the discussion doesn't end here. Hopefully you can take it online on our Facebook page, on our website, triplej.net.au/restoring_the_balance, or...
Yes, or we're on Twitter.
That's right.
Tom Tomlinson, Or
Tomlinson Tom,
Tomlinson
mate.
Tom. Tomlinson Tom or Stirling Addison with 2 Ds. You can Twitter us.
We'd love to hear your feedback, and we'd love for you to contribute to our What's On next week, or maybe what Tom is listening to. Maybe you got a good song.
Or maybe you would like to remember somebody in your prayers and get that announced on the air as well.
See you next week.
Goodbye.
Restoring the Balance is proudly brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Communications, the Perth Loyal Orange Battle of the Boyne Recreation Society, the Royal Bowral Racing Stud, the Charleville Turkey Fanciers Association, and the Port Hedland Australians for Australia think tank.